Hare Krishna. Thank you all for coming. We can have a little fun today, I hope. After this presentation, there'll be some questions. And if you get the wrong answer, no Krishna Prasad for you. Now I've got your attention, right? So wait a minute. I got a ticket. You can't do that. This is an introduction to what we're all about and why it matters. But I think I got a wardrobe issue. There we go. I think you'll find it useful. At least that's my hope. And we'll see. I even have a laser pointer. Do we have any water? No, you got time, Govardhan? All right. You got a clock? All right, good to go. Nama Om Vishnu. This is a mantra praying for some light to be shined on me by my spiritual master. Perfect. Thank you, Govardhan. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharani Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskacha Desatarani Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this, hey, we need to shut that door because I don't know if you guys can even see. Do we need to shut this door and then it becomes intolerably hot? We can see. No, I know what I am knowing what I am doing. I've been doing this for years because the details matter. See, that's better there. And maybe that's the best we can do. If we, all right, that'll do. So have you ever felt, my spiritual master said that doubt is a sign of intelligence. Not unending, unsatisfiable doubt. But wait a minute. Is everything exactly like it's being presented? Just going along like a lemming off the cliff or a cog in the machine? But to have a little bit, Prabhupada also said, my spiritual master, that doubt is the next door neighbor to intelligence. That to think about, wait a minute, where's this train really going? So that's what we're talking about here. Now, obviously, because you're here in the temple, you have some interest in higher thoughts of life. Otherwise, well, maybe you heard there was a good meal and it didn't cost much. I mean, there's many motivations for why people come, but let's assume you have a little baseline of knowledge. Still, I think this will help you. So there's an old business saying, if you want to figure out what's going on, ask 5 times. Why doesn't the machine work? Why aren't you producing your widgets? Well, the machine's not working. Okay. Well, why isn't the machine working? Well, it's out of kilter. Okay. Why is it out of kilter? And eventually you go back and you find, well, there's a screw loose. Okay. So that's the real, I got to find out the screw's loose. I fix the screw and everything will fall in line like dominoes. So we should do the same in our life. Be a little inquisitive. Atato Brahma Jigyasya is the Vedanta Sutra. Now in the human form of life is the time to ask about Brahman. That what is eternal? What is everlasting? What has true worth, value, and beauty? Okay, so here we go. We can do that. What is it with the screen sharing? We just have to live with that? That's not a big deal. Okay, next. Okay. So I was in Burma, Myanmar, as they say now, a few years ago. I was actually at a little shop down from our temple getting some office supplies or whatever it was, I forget. And I was a young college student there. Nice kid, nice young man. And he was asking me different questions. I was doing my best at it. And I said, we have a talk up at the temple tonight. Why? It's just right up the hill. Why don't you come? He said, geez, I'd really like to come, but I'm too busy. Late for an important date. Just as a sidelight, I got to keep my eye on the time. My Guru Maharaj, my spiritual master, was speaking one time, an informal discussion. And this one guy in the front kept fidgeting and looking at his watch. Obviously, he didn't want to be there. His wife had dragged him. The wife, as the better half, had dragged this guy. He did not want to be there. And, when I say Prabhupada, it means my spiritual master. So Prabhupada didn't miss a thing. So Prabhupada asked him, what's the issue? The man said, I'm late for a very important date. Prabhupada said, actually, we only have one important date in life, and we will not miss it. Anyone know what that is? Time of death. You can call Yamaraj, the Lord of Death, and say, no, Thursday doesn't work for me. How about never? It's never worked for you? No. It comes, as in the Bible, it says, Jesus says death comes like a thief at night. No one knows. So, okay. So this kid said, I don't have time. I said, why? He said, well, I've got to study for a test. I said, okay. And we're not anti-education. Don't walk out the wrong idea here. But I said, why? He said, I got to study for a test. I said, okay, why? He said, well, I want to get a good grade. I said, why? He said, well, I want to pass the course with honors. It's my last year. I said, why? He said, well, I want to go to a graduate school in America, college. I want to get into a good school. I said, why? He said, well, then I'm going to get a good job. I said, why? He said, well, I have a good job. I can make money. I said, okay, why? Well, so then I can get a big house and a shiny car. I said, okay, why? He said, well, then I can get a nice wife. You got to be attractive. You're going to play out there in the field. So I said, why? He said, because then I'll be happy. I said, aha, your goal is happiness. These are all intermediate, preliminary, precursor steps to happiness. Your goal is happiness. I said, my dear friend, I've come from America, a lot of shiny cars, a lot of big houses, so many wives, so many husbands, it's all going on. I said, and they're all miserable. Prozac is the biggest medical, the prescription Prozac, it's the highest drug on the market. More than penicillin or whatever, Prozac. I said, so people are wound up tight, my friend. And he did come that night, by the way. But why? To get to the heart of thing. So I would like to ask some whys. Here we go. Next. Okay. And also an effective cure. At least, maybe there's a solution to the general malaise and dissatisfaction. One of our devotees, when he meets people about a book, and people say, and I can understand, they got so many things on their, we'll get into that in a minute, on their life and their mind and this and that. And they say, would you like a book? Whatever book on wisdom, truth. Nah, I'm good. I'm good. His answer is, could be better, which I think is a good answer. So maybe things could be better. Okay, if you want to, I'm not going to berate your life. I don't know what's going on, but could be better. Let's suppose it could be better. So if you accept that there's a problem or it could be better, what's the it's right there on the screen. But if you want to cure a disease, got to have a good doctor, got to have medicine, got to have diet, fine. But what's the bottom line thing you got to have if you want to get cured of a disease? Read the screen, my friends. You got to have a good diagnosis. You can do everything right, but if you get the wrong diagnosis, you're still going to drop dead or whatever. Your hair is going to fall out or whatever is going to happen. Okay, so you got to have the right diagnosis. If I go out with a thermometer to explore the world, I got a thermometer. What will I see and experience? Temperature. If that's all I have to measure, that's all I'm going to experience. What do they say? If you think like a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If I have another means of measure, all of a sudden, if I can measure velocity, if I can measure height or depth, or so many different ways of measuring experience in the world. If I only have one measure, that narrow band is all I'm going to experience. And most people just eat, sleep, drink, make it to Walmart and back. Hope they have an IRA that doesn't cave in on them. And hey, that's about it. So, but we got to know what the real problem is. And people are looking at material solutions to problems. You got the scientist over here. I'm sure she's got a PhD, piled higher and deeper. I'm sure, no, we're not against education, but I'm sure she's, what's she measuring? And here we have a saint. You can measure the external world. There's Magellan and Christopher Columbus and Vasco da Gama. And who was the guy at the top of the North Pole, whatever that guy's name was? South Pole also. One of them froze on the way, but doesn't always work out. So they're exploring the external world. But what about the internal realm of consciousness? There is an internal world. Each of us has our own realm of consciousness. What about exploring that? So I have a picture of a sage here, and he's meditating on the internal world. It's equally valid. Someone's looking in the external, someone's looking in the internal. Okay, next. And we often set ourselves up. I'm going to present a few ways we set ourselves up for anxiety. And anybody who's honest with himself, there's always some, as they say in Italy, there's always a rock in the shoe. There's always something. And, if we can minimize that or deal with that, that's intelligence. The birds migrate, but they never say, I'm done with Florida. I'm going to France this year. They're building a nest. They get, it's always this round nest. I'm going for your geodesic dome. I'm breaking. I want a porch this year, or whatever. They're just set in a groove. So we should think about that. Gotcha. Okay. So we often set ourselves up. Here's some examples of how we set ourselves up. We're going to get back to diagnosis and cure, but this is diagnosis phase. Next. This happened to me personally many years ago. I was about 5 years old, maybe 6 years old. It was a kinder and gentler world in those days. And my mother, my long-suffering and beloved mother, dropped us off. There's my brother who was 10, my sister was 8, and I was 6. Dropped us off at the movie theater. And in those days, there was a double feature and a newsreel and an intermission. And, she had us out of her hair. We were safe. My older brother was there. She had us out of her hair for a couple hours. She could do so many things. Whether a man works from sun to sun, a woman's work is never done. She had a lot on her plate, to tell you the truth. So she dropped us off, and she gave me 25 cents, which is a big chunk of change. That was 1958. I mean, that was serious spending money, especially if you're a kid, And I remember I was looking at I couldn't even see the top of the counter, but I was looking, and I was in my little lusty calculation. I was, I'm going to get the biggest bang for my investment here, What's the longest? What's the thickest? What's going to last? I was making all these little ching, all these calculations. And I finally settled. It's a true story. I settled on an almond joy because it was about this long and about this thick. Seemed to be. That's a hint. So I plunked down my change, got a drink and some popcorn to go with it. I was in heaven. And I zipped the thing open. What the? Next slide. Yeah, what happened? I got these two little things came out of this big tray. I said, I've been hosed, And my brother said, get used to it. And life in it was it was the first time I experienced that not everybody is honest. And not everybody has my best interests at heart. I was shocked, how dare you, So, but we set our artificial anticipation based on unrealistic expectations, and we're cruising for a bruising. We're going to get disappointment, and we go through it again and again and again. Next, I'm just going to go through these quickly. We can do Here's another one. I was flying, true story, from New York City, JFK, to San Juan, Puerto Rico. I was helping set up our Spanish language printing press. Yeah. So when I was in New York City, and in the airport, JFK, there was a big posters. You go down to the, get on the gates, big size. It said, going nuts in this big city, chaos, cacophony, confusion. Go to Puerto Rico. It had a beautiful picture of the beach, aquamarine water, white sand, palm tree, blah. It looked nice, okay? I swear to you, when I landed in San Juan Airport, before I even walked out the door, I was going to get my baggage, big sign, New York City skyline at night. And it said, going nuts on this little island with nothing to do, go to New York. And I remember thinking, hey, hang on a minute. Hey, hang on. Something doesn't quite square here. I just came from New York. Everybody's miserable. I'm landing in Puerto Rico. They're all going nuts on this little island. You know, where is happiness? Was it, I think the distance is 6,000 miles, 4,000 miles. Was it at 2,500 miles, halfway over Atlanta at 30,000 feet? Because I flew right past happiness. So we're expecting that circumstances are going to make us happy. And therefore, everybody's trying to push matter around. Bigger house, bigger car, new wife, new husband, dye my hair another color. I don't know, whatever it is. Move to Puerto Rico. But we're just trying to push matter around. But it doesn't really get to the... So here's the thing. Is happiness determined by our location? Is it determined by our conditions? Because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that material nature, this all stuff, this material nature, is constantly mutable. It's always in a state of flux. Chemistry will tell you that. Physics, law of entropy, everything's in different states. It's always fluctuating, constantly mutable. If my happiness depends on conditions, follow the dots, kids. If my happiness is depending on conditions, and conditions are always changing, constantly mutable, what does that say about my happiness if it rests on conditions? Zip, right out the door. So there it is. So I'm setting myself up if I'm expecting conditions to make me happy. So, okay, does that leave me in a void? What happens next? We'll get there, don't worry. Next. Okay, so perception, how we perceive, this is another thing that's a setup that gets us a particular result. Because our premise, and we'll get there in a minute. You ever had your eyes checked, what is it, better or worse? Better or worse, and ultimately you get clear vision, at least in theory. So we have different perceptions that determine how we experience the world. Experience is not a neutral experience. Sitting in this room, consciousness determines it. Some of you are wondering, when is this guy going to clam up and they're going to serve the feast? Some of you think, oh, geez, I got a heavy day tomorrow. Some of you think, oh, well, that makes some sense. So even in this room, there's all kinds of realities and levels of consciousness. It's not fixed. So how we perceive the world determines how we experience the world. We all have the same sensory experience right now. We're at the same temperature, the same sound, the same sights. Everything is the same. But we're all experiencing it completely different. So perception determines experience. You follow? Therefore, perception should matter. What is my perception? Next. So our experience depends on our angle of vision. Next. This is just for fun. You see this guy? I mean, who wants to be here? It just sucks. He's schlepping home from the 7-Eleven. He's probably got a pre-cooked dinner in there, whatever, some Chinese noodles or something. It's going to be cold when he gets home. And, he's going to put on some video he's seen before. Who knows what he's going to surf or whatever, online. So he's not too happy. And all of a sudden he sees this sign, scenic area. And all of a sudden behind this facade, wait a minute, there's a whole other world. Perception determines experience. What if there's a whole other way of seeing this world? Whoa, that would certainly change my experience. Next. That's where we're going. Okay, just for fun, to give you an idea what I'm talking about. Everybody see the seagull? Bark, bark. Little, he's a cute little guy. He's got his little beak, little eyes. Nice guy. No problem. Hey, wait a minute. Next. Some people haven't seen it. Everybody knows this? Okay, so you see the rabbit? There he is, man. He's got his ear, little button nose. Go back. Seagull, go to the rabbit. Go back a few times. Seagull, rabbit. It'll spin your mind after a while, because what we're expecting is what we're seeing. We're seeing the same thing. But what we set our consciousness up to see is what we see. That's the point I'm making. Next, we'll go for a few of these. Which way are the birds flying? White birds going to the left. Blackbirds go on the right. You can zing, zing, go around. I got a few more of these, just to give you the idea that seeing is not believing. This premise, seeing is what we experience via our senses is not the truth. There's a whole wave that goes through the. Okay, next. This is a mind bender. Check this guy out. Side or front view. All depends on the angle. Next. Is it a rope or is it a snake? That's pretty spooky. And it happens to people sometimes. Next. Okay, so here's another different type of perception that affects our experience. You change the perception, you change the experience. Here's what we want. We want so many big things. Krishna says that material desires burn like fire and are never satisfied. That's the point that's being made here. The more fuel you put on the fire, does it burp, say thank you very much, and go out? That was a good meal. Mesquite, I'm very happy. What does it do? The more fuel you put on the fire, it just gets bigger. And we have a whole consumer society that's based on bigger, 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 more, more, more. Everybody's deeply in debt on their credit card. Why? Oh, you got to have the new whiz-bang, man. You're not cool. Okay, so here's what we want. Well, we actually need very small. It's not much. Next. And we have all kinds of thoughts banging around in our head. It's a merry-go-round going around. It says guilt, shame, doubt, guilt, shame. And it's going around and around. Bang, 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 bang. So many perceptions. Am I loved? Am I appreciated? Is this all it's about? Did that person disrespect me? Well, bang, 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 bang. Next. The surgery. See, they've done surgery on this guy's head. And what did they find? This little monkey going around. Bang, 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 bang. I'm too fat. Bang, 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 bang. Just imagine, get that out of your head. Oh, jeez. I can actually think for a minute, Okay, next. So we're going to talk about the mind and different levels of perceptions. We see through the senses. We'll get there in a minute, but just to tell you where we're going. We see through the senses. We see through the mind. We see through the intelligence. We see through our ego. I'm Russian. I'm Chinese. I'm cool. I'm hip. I'm detached. I'm a Republican. I'm a Democrat. I'm, all kinds of filters. So, anyway, we'll get there. So, dealing with the mind. What do you say he says to people? And say, one of our monks who goes out for distributing our books, our wisdom books, he says, who's your best friend? And then what's the next thing you say? Who's your worst enemy? And people, do I have to just name one? No. So, they're thinking going on in their brain, all kinds. They think, nice people, pious. I don't have any enemies. I got a lot of friends, but not many enemies. So they're sorting through. But then what do you say? Actually, it's the same person as your best friend and your worst enemy. Huh? How is that possible? Anyone want to guess? It's your mind. It's just bang, bang, bang. It's our best friend and our worst enemy. So next, it's right there. Sorry about that. Next. So there's the old joke. Where does the 2-ton gorilla sit? Anyone know? Where does the 2-ton gorilla sit at a party? Anywhere it wants. So our mind is like a 2-ton gorilla. I think the next slide. What's the next slide? Oh, well, we'll get there in a minute. So Krishna says in the Gita, one must deliver oneself with the help of one's mind and not degrade oneself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul, that's us, and the enemy as well. Because of all those perceptions that are rattling around in the brain that are determining our experience and goals. Next. Oh, we'll skip that one. We got a friend here. Okay, here we go. And I've seen this. So you go to the developing world, you see it all the time. I mean, this is a brown Swiss. Anyone ever seen a brown Swiss bull? Yeah, man. How big is that thing? Yeah, it can be short. Yeah, and when they want to go somewhere, anybody ever? Well, I don't know if you have, but anyone in America, but that bull goes where it wants to go. They knock through fences, they knock through doors. They just that's it. But I've seen. And I'm sure the rest of you have seen as well. Some of you have seen. You go to a developing world, and they got a little kid. The kid will be a little girl, a little boy, 6, 7 years old. They're just pulling that bull this way, that way. No problem. How do they do it? Well, look at the picture. They have a ring in the nose. That septum of a bull is very sensitive. and they pierce it. And with that ring in the nose, the bull will go anywhere. So even though it's a big, big bull, it's controlled by that little ring. Similarly, we are by the nature of the self. Vedas say that the nature of this, Brahmabhuta prasanatma nasojite nakanchate, is the Sanskrit for Bhagavad Gita, which means our nature is free from hankering, lamentation, and we're tasting the pleasure of the self. That is the default mode that we're meant to be in, that we're free from anxiety, free from guilt, free from fear. That's where, but because of the mind and all of these perceptions, we're being pulled like that big bull with the ring in the nose. You know, a tiger is jumping through the hoop, you know, with that flaming hoop. I don't know if they still do that thing anymore. It's horrible. But the snap of that crack of the whip, the lion can't figure out where it's coming from. And he's also been hit by that whip enough times that he thinks, hey, I better jump. Even though it's a risk, his mane may catch on fire, but he's jumping through that hoop. Hare Krishna. And I'm sorry that it happened, but wasn't that Siegfried and Roy in Las Vegas with the white tigers? One of those tigers said, hey, enough of this, man. It's coming from that little guy right there, and just turned on him and mauled him. So, but because of the fear, he was thinking, I've got to jump through the hoop and do what this guy says. Because of all those things rattling around in our brain, we're completely controlled by the mind and suffering the results. Okay, next. So these are some basic, who am I? Well, it's Socrates, know thyself and to thine own self be true. If you want to be true, first you have to know who you are. What is myself? Know thyself. And so this is describing here. We can understand, if we're intelligent, that I'm not this body. This body is a machine. It's just, it's got levers and pull. You act any medical person, it's just levers and bags and tubes and, things flowing this way and flowing that. It's just a giant machine. We say, oh, my finger, my arm, my head. Then we say, point to yourself. I did this. Prabhupada did it actually one time with a class of elementary kids. Simon says, touch your nose, touch your ear, then touch yourself. And the kids were all, get a little experience that we're not this body. Okay, we can understand we're not this body with a little thought about it. I've had so many bodies. I was a riddle of the Sphinx. Anyone know what the riddle of the Sphinx is? What animal crawls on 4 legs in the morning, stands on 2 legs in the evening, at noon, so 4 in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 in the evening? Anyone know? Other than Bhakti Ed? No? Think about it. Human being. You crawl on 4 as a baby, 2, you're an adult standing up, and 3, Exhibit A. Yeah. So the body's changing all the time. Okay, we're not this body. But guess what? We're also not this mind. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a fireman. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted so many different things. The mind's changing all the time. We like somebody, we don't like. So we're not the body, we're not the mind. We're also not our intellect. We're not just, that changes all the time. And we're not the false ego. Real ego is I have a real identity. False ego is I think that I'm an American, I'm a Russian, I'm a poet, I'm a musician, I'm a tough guy, whatever. That's false ego. But there's a real self, the eternal soul. Next. This is where we're going. And this is again from the Gita, and it helps you understand, who am I really? Hey. The senses are superior to matter, Krishna says. The mind is higher than the senses. The intelligence is higher than the mind, and the soul is even higher than the intelligence. And Krishna gives an analogy. If you look here are the horses. And each one represents one of the senses. There's the eye, there's the nose, this and that. It's interesting to note, it's on a precipice. They're just about to fall off a cliff. So you've got the horses, which are compared to the senses. They're pulling us out into, what was that sound? What was that smell? They're pulling us out into the world. Then you've got the reins that control the horses. That's like the mind. The mind takes all the raw data, pulls it together, and puts it into like menus. Oh, you smell that? Oh, they're cooking. Well, maybe this guy will be done in a few minutes and we have our feast. Or bang, oh, what was that out? What's up going on? You know? So the senses give the raw data. The mind puts it into menus. Maybe it's this, maybe it's this, maybe that. Maybe you could do this, you could do that, you could do that. And then the intelligence is compared to the driver. See the intelligence? And the intelligence then determines, okay, we're going to go this way. We're going to click on this menu. We're going to take this choice based on the plan that was created by the mind, based on the raw data received. The body is just the carriage. And who's our panicked friend here? Whoa! That's our real self. We're not the body. We're not the carriage. We're not the horses, the senses. We're not the reins, the mind. We're not the driver, the intelligence. We're actually the person inside. Okay, next. We're the soul, the eternal soul. So we're going to wrap up in a few minutes, but we cannot control circumstances. I love this picture. It's a crisis clinic. It's on fire. It's been knocked off its mooring and just about to go off the waterfall. How many things are wrong in this picture? You call them up. How's it going in the crisis center? Nah, we got a few issues, but come tomorrow, you know? So we can't control circumstances. What can we control? Oh, it's right there. But what can we control? How we react to them. And if we think, wait a minute, I'm not the body. That's just a machine. I'm not this mind. It's bang, 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 bang. I'm not this pride, this ego, this envy. That's not me, the false ego. That's not me. So if it's not, then what is valuable to me? What matters? What's important? Next. So we are, as I said earlier, Brahmabhuta. I just put this together. I got to add a slide here, but Brahmabhuta Prasannatma. When we're on the level of spiritual understanding, what is one of the greatest fears in life? Why? When there's a car accident, what is on the freeway and everybody slows down? What is one of the subliminal prayers that are being offered at that time by every car that goes by? There, but by the grace of God go I. Thank the forces, of course we're theists, so it's not me. The greatest fear, if there's a huge bang, or so, if this building starts to shake, everybody's out the door. So there's a subliminal angst. What happens at the time of death? And then there's all kinds of subordinate ones, and this is the way we're living. But it's not the way, it's not the truth. So these are some keys, and we'll leave you with this. We were talking this morning that what is a science? I think the basic scientific method is your observation, hypothesis, and then you come up with a conclusion or a thesis. You observe, you draw some conclusion, and you say, okay, if I see this, it means this is happening and that is caused by this. You can define the phenomena. So if I see the wind, if I see those leaves moving, let me ask you this. Jamuna Jivana, is the wind blowing outside? It's not a trick question. You'll still get prasadam, don't worry. Why? If you want a little confirmation, how would you know if the wind is blowing? Don't overthink it. Okay, go outside and feel it, but suppose I can't go outside? That's a good question. Yeah, you see the leaves moving. You don't see the actual wind or feel it, but you see the symptom. The point I'm trying to make in a short few minutes is the symptom of consciousness, the symptom of a sense of self, is beyond all the stuff rattling around in our brain. And it's actually that I'm eternal spirit soul. Now, there's a second part to this, and I'll just say the conclusion. We also can conclude that this world is not happening by chance. And that can, any way you want to go at it, there's 1,000 ways. And when something's not happening by chance, it's happening by a designer. I didn't want to make this too long. You guys showed up here, and there were chairs, and then don't worry, there's a feast that's been cooked. The deities are beautiful. Place is clean. Did it happen by magic? What if you walk in here There's no chanting, no kirtan, no devotees. Everything's all jumbled up. Curtains are closed. No one's cooking. What do you say? Hey, who's in charge here? I want to talk to the boss. So it means there's wherever you see order, pattern, symmetry, design, there's intelligence behind it. So the point is, intelligent design means there's a purpose. I mean, I'm not packing a lot into this at one point in time. But if we're not this body, if we're not matter, if we're consciousness, and things are arranged and organized, then there must be a subliminal purpose. And that purpose is to come in contact with the intelligence, the designer, the supreme consciousness, the cause of all causes, Krishna. That's the real purpose that's going to make us happy. Okay, so just some tools and we'll end. So, okay, fine, nice theory. What do I do about it? I mean, that's nice theory. You've got a hypothesis, you've got a conclusion. I've observed it. But how do you actually, that was it. Scientific method means you can duplicate it. That's the basic principle. I write a paper, it makes some conclusion at University of Chicago. Well, people should be able to take my labs and reproduce it. If you can't reproduce it, it's bogus. It's a fluke. It's, either it's cheating or it's just you didn't do the experiment correctly. So it should be duplicatable. And since time immemorial, there are great saints, sages. As I said in the beginning, you've got your Vasco da Gama and your Magellan, you've got your Einstein, you've got whoever you got out there that are exploring the external realm. You also have great saints and sages who studied the realm of consciousness. And they've left behind their charts, their labs. They've got their instructions. Utsaha Nischaya Daryat. I mean, Rupa Goswami's how to do. Connect the dots. So here's 3 basic dots and then we'll be finished. Okay. How do we open the door? How does it become real to us? Next. So mantras. Mantras are a Vedic science to settle. Mantra. Man means mind. Tra means to deliver, to expand, to relieve. So all of those effects are on the mind. So this is the Hare Krishna mantra, which is considered the Maha Mantra. It is the essence. If I have, 32/64ths, I can reduce that to 16/32s. I can get down to 8/16ths. I can get down to 4/8ths. I can get down to 2/4ths. But it was the lowest common denominator. I can get down to 1/2 and you can't really reduce it. So the essence of all mantras, of all meditation, of all prayer, confirmed by great saints and sages since time immemorial, and you can test it out, is chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. It gives one a taste for wait a minute, I'm not this raging mind, I'm not these demanding senses. Wait a minute, who am I? You get a sense of the self, and you get a sense of the self's connected with the Supreme, Krishna. Just by chanting. Sound vibration is, you can crack glass with a mundane voice. Sound is, next. And we chant on these beads, prayer beads, and you'll find Christians have a rosary, the Muslims chant on beads, Jewish Hasidic, they chant on beads. This process, there's something called samadhi. You ever heard this word, samadhi? It means to withdraw the senses from all distractions and fix them on one point. It's a yogic process. You control the life air. That's the whole point of the different asanas and all that stuff, Patanjali yoga system. It's all meant to come to the point of samadhi, which means that all distractions are gone and you're fixed on one point. Now, they don't know what that one point is. I went to, it's a long story, but they got a red dot on the wall and you fix all your saying. It takes hours and hours and all the different asanas and you fix on a red dot on the wall. Okay, but is that the cause of all causes? Do you feel any real bhav or any real pleasure and happiness and loving reciprocation from a red dot on the wall? So, but the way we chant japa and the way people do this chanting on beads, and through practically every genuine spiritual tradition has the same principle. You've got the sense of touch on the bead. You're hearing, you're speaking, you're thinking about Krishna, or they're thinking about Jesus or Buddha, but all the senses, like a tortoise pulls in all its, limbs, everything becomes pulled in and breath automatically becomes controlled. So this is the potency, one of the potencies of the chanting of japa, that's the Hare Krishna mantra on beads. Next. And take a mini vacation. mini, it's not mini vacations, but they say that psychologically, find your happy place, in the middle of the day, just take a 15 meditation, find your happy place. Because we're just like, anyway, ever ride a roller coaster? What's the time? Oh, we're cool. Because we want to take some questions. If I'm going up, a roller coaster, click, 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 click. And what happens when you get to that tipping point at the top? What was that all about? Most people lead their lives like that. They get a little rest, tick, 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 and bam, the alarm clock goes off or what, and next thing, what happened to that? And the whole life goes like that. Just sing before you know it. So how to have, the Sanskrit word is ashraya, and it translates as shelter, but it has deep meaning. How to filter out all the garbage, and remember, wait a minute, how to get in touch with my actual self and the happiness of the self, and how to get free from all the crazy, mad running, how to get free from all that. So this japa, the devotees, every morning, we're here. You can come and join us. You can do it at home. We have japa beads. I don't get a commission off them. There's no, if you don't want to get them here, you can get your own wood beads at a hardware store and tie them up yourself. The devotees, some of our Hare Krishna people, monks, they were thrown in jail in Russia a long, long time ago. And what did they do? They took that Russian bread, that nice, thick, heavy bread, pushed it into balls, took a straw, pushed it, because they were in jail. They took away their beads, took away everything, So what did they do? Made a bead out of hard bread, dried it in the sun, had pushed a hole through it with a straw, took their bed sheets, ripped off their bed, and made japamala, made beads to chant on. You can't keep a good person down. So whatever way you want to do it, but I guarantee you take a few minutes every day, peaceful, not on when you're driving your car or, whatever it is, just peaceful. Take 15 minutes and peacefully chant the Hare Krishna mantra. And the experience is enriched if you chant on beads. What do you got to lose? People spend so much money. I had a friend who, I don't want to go off your track, but spent all, saved for 3 years, went to Tahiti. When he got there, it was super hot. It was bad weather. And then it rained the whole time. What? That doesn't always happen, but this is a guaranteed experience. You just peacefully chant, no cost, no investment. So, and then the other things, take a mini vacation, fill our head. Education, in the Latin root of the word education, means to draw forth, to bring out, as from darkness into light. Doesn't mean, stacking up figures. To draw from darkness into light. The great saints, Hare Krishna, the great saints and sages, thinkers in the past, they've left their books, they've left their realizations, they've left their methods, how to do it. The Supreme Lord himself, there's Shruti and there's Smriti. There's those things that are actually spoken by the Supreme. There was the word, and there it is. So the simple point I'm making, we have the Vedic literatures, primarily Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Buy a book. I don't get a commission. If you don't have any money, we'll give it to you. I'll even, tonight only, special, blue light special. You can take a Bhagavad Gita or a first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam home for free. If you don't have any money, take it for free. Read it for a week. Let's make it fair. Read it for 2 weeks, 5 minutes a day for 2 weeks. If you don't find a profound change for the better in your life, bring it back. If you want to buy it, I'll say this. If you, what does a Gita cost us? $10 is a soft Gita? First canto Bhagavatam? How much? $10? Something like that. Yeah. What do you spend that on coffee in a day? So, and if you take it and read it and it doesn't satisfy you, you don't have a profound change in your life, I'm here, Swami. Bring it to me. I'll give you your money back, guaranteed. So I think we're getting in there next. So there is a methodology. There's a science. There's a step-by-step process. It is not wishful thinking. It is not sentiment. It's not blind faith. You can take the the directions given by the sages who've left. If in their laboratories, they've got their ashrams. The equivalent is the ashram. They've got, instead of a lab book, they've got their teachings and guidance. And you follow it, and it works. And anybody who does it gets the same result to the degree that you apply yourself. So it's there. We should not just skim along this. Hey, we're almost done. We should not just skim along the surface of life and wonder, well, what do they say? Nothing. You know what the man who fell off when you say, how you doing? Not so bad. You ever hear this? How you doing? Not so bad. You know what not so bad means? That's what the man who fell off the roof said before he hit the ground. So are we just, stimulus response, battered from pillar to post, hope we can eke out that we still got our teeth by the time we're 70, and then drop dead? A little fun with the Disneyland, come on. That's not what it's all about, okay? So unlock and discover our full, but see this guy? He's here in this world, known phenomena. But wait a minute. There are whole other dimensions and realities. Okay, next. I think it's our last slide. Okay, so there it is. By reading and chanting, we will find Krishna, the supreme cause of all causes, and directly experience him with no blind faith. All righty. Now, what time is it? We can hit the lights. Not bad. So if anybody has a question or two, because we go till 7, isn't it? Don't worry. It says in the Bhagavad Gita that any experience can be tolerated for a fixed amount of time. So you've got, 11 minutes? Does anyone have a question? And here's how this works. I'll tell you exactly how it works, because I've done this for years. Nobody will ask a question thinking, the person next to me will ask a question. Everybody's got questions. Everybody does. But they're thinking, I'm shy. It's not a good question. And the next guy will ask a question. But all it takes is one to break the ice. So do we have someone with a question?
Hello, I have a question.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. In your
You managed to take a good lesson from a fool. The qualification is yours. But go ahead.
My question is, in the hierarchy which you presented, the senses, the mind, the intelligence, and then the soul, could you please explain how the ego participates in that, if it's part of the hierarchy?
It is part of the hierarchy. It is just like, anyway, I don't want to get too far afield. Each one is a little more refined and a little closer to our actual self. So you notice whenever I said it, and in the Shastra, in the Vedic literature, it says false ego. Now if I say false ego, what does that imply?
It's diluted.
Huh?
It's diluted.
Diluted is good, but deceptive, okay. I'm looking for something else. Yeah, if I say, whatever it is, if something's false, if I see a mirage in the desert and I run towards it because I see the water there, it's not in the desert, but water is there. I can't even conceptualize water in the desert without having experienced water. So we have a real identity. Our identity actually is that we're the eternal servants of the Supreme Lord. We have a loving relationship with the cause of all causes. We are dependent, but that dependent is not a matter of a sense of creatureliness or littleness or like I can be dependent, whatever. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm the light of the sun and the moon. Krishna's talking about himself. I'm the light of the sun and moon. I'm the original fragrance of the earth. I'm the ability, so many of bodies of water. I'm the ocean. He explains ways to see the active principle of the Supreme in all things. I was sitting in Prabhupada's room one time with a number of devotees. And it was cold, at least for California. People had scarves and caps and sitting in Prabhupada's room. And you can go to that room in our LA temple. And there's a kind of a square window. And Prabhupada was sitting here, and then we were all here. So the sun, the window, Prabhupada, and us. And you know how sometimes if it's a cloudy day, the sun will part, and there'll be a beam of sunlight, just like a flashlight, like a spotlight. It'll come down a shaft of light, they call it. So it was cold. We're all rugged up or, scarfed up and everything. The sun broke through a little hole in the clouds, came right through that window, and because Prabhupada was perfectly shaped, that rectangle shape of the window, and shined just on Srila Prabhupada. He was bathed in a warm, golden ray of light. We were all still in darkness, figuratively and literally. And Prabhupada, who doesn't miss a thing, it was just a magical moment. And Prabhupada said, yes. He said, someday you will feel this sunlight like your lover's embrace. So we are, to address your question, but I wanted to link it up to this other thing. We are not this body, we're not the mind, we're not the intelligence, we're not, because all of those change. We are not the false ego, because that changes also. Certainly it changes with every body. You die and you're born again, and all of a sudden you're a dog in Sweden. what happened? Mark. So it's changing all the time. But the self, the soul, and the fact that I'm an eternal servant and lover of Krishna, and what actually the greatest happiness comes from service. It's a fact. The mother loves the child. We love our family, we love our wife loves her husband, whatever it may be. But that selfless service is actually what gives people the greatest happiness. J. Paul Getty, at the time, was the richest person in the world. You know what he said? There are only two types of people in this world. People you pay to stay with you, and people you pay to stay away from you. Can you imagine what a miserable... imagine that you just pay him to stay away from you, or pay him to stay with you. There's no real love, there's no real affection, there's no real service, there's no real understanding, there's no real warmth. But if one of our kids, many years ago, and we'll end here, wrote a little poem. Instead of loving just a dog or a cat, why not love Krishna, who made all of that? And my spiritual master really liked it. He said, this is sutra. It got to the essence of the thing. So the false ego is what we like light, and you can put up a green, filter it, or green, or blue, or red, or yellow, and the light actually becomes blue. But that's not its original. Original, it's pure light, but it's filtered through. So the false ego filters our consciousness. Our pure consciousness is filtered through the false ego, and then it goes through all the different. It goes down the chain like dominoes. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much.
All righty. Okay, we have 5 minutes. We got to get in a rim shot, and we got one more question. Everybody's hungry. All right, we'll end there. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So, what is the takeaway? I got 5 minutes. What's the takeaway? Hey, help me out here. What is the action homework that you're going to do? Hopefully. Try the experiment. Hey, I know you. We've met before. Get some beads and chant the holy name, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Read these books. We bathe daily. Isn't it? Well, let's hope so. We're not riding next to you on a bus. We bathe daily. We brush our teeth. What about bathing the soul? What about bathing our consciousness? So please, it's simple. It's right there in front of us, but we don't take it. Hare Krishna. Thank you.